Good day everyone. My name is Harwin Janela and together with my partner John Matthew Manlangit. We're going to report about idealisms and Rizal's poetry and essays. Learning objectives. Articulate the significant poems and essays of Rizal. Interpret Rizal's ideology in his poem and essays. Evaluate the relevance of Rizal's idealisms in his writings to the various contemporary society's issues and challenges. Fourth, apply the ideology of Rizal's character and values as modern-day Filipino. In his letter to the young women of Malolos, Rizal expounded his ideas about the qualities a mother should possess in order to raise a child. On the other hand, in his poem to the Filipino youth, he accentuated that the youth are the hope of the Filipino nation, hence they should educate themselves. Jose Rizal became the Philippines' national hero because he battled for the freedom in a quiet but effective manner. Instead of using violence or hostility, he wrote books, essays, and articles to show his love for the Philippines. He was a very remarkable individual for his period. He was a modest, preferring to speak out in favor of improvements using his words rather than starting a revolution. He used his intellect, skills, and abilities in a more peaceful manner than behaving violently. One of the Rizal's essays and writings is he wrote about to the young women of Malolos. This letter is advocating for the empowerment and education of women in Malolos, Philippines. Rizal criticizes the traditional submissive role of women and the influence of church urging women to be brave, independent, and intelligent in their pursuit of societal welfare. He emphasizes the importance of education for women, comparing the progress of nations with the freedom and education of their women. Rizal also critiques church corruptions and manipulations, urging women to discern true teachings and not to be swayed by superficial practices. He concludes by encouraging women to continue their education and raise honorable and brave children who respect their fellow men and country and God. This Rizal's letter explains passionately advocates for the empowerment, education, and liberation of Filipino women from societal constraints. Uh, Gina-challenge ni Rizal ang gender roles, criticizes blind obedience to religious authorities, and underscore the transformative power of education in advancing women's rights and societal progress. Si Rizal, uh, ginakol niya ang women to be courageous and knowledgeable. Uh, mo ni ang ga-remind nga it's important of ang women is to know about the critical thinking and empowerment, especially integrity in the pursuit of gender equality and social justice. The next topic will be continued by John Matthew Manlangit.
To the Philippine youth. The Philippine youth is a rallying call for the young people of the Philippines to embrace their talents and potential for greatness. Rizal urges them to break free from the chains of oppressions and colonialism, emphasizing the importance of education and the pursuit of knowledge. He celebrates their talents and creativity, encouraging them to use their gifts to uplift their nations, and the poem concludes with a message of hope. Jose Rizal wrote the poem A la Juventud Filipina, or it means to the Philippine youth, in 1879. He was 18 years old at that time. The poem was composed while Rizal was a student at the University of Santo Tomas in Manila, Philippines. It was written in Spanish, which was the colonial language of the Philippines during that period. The poem has been translated into various languages over the years, including English. One of the notable translations into English was done by Charles Derbyshire. An American who translated many of Rizal's work. His translation have helped spread Rizal's ideas and literary contribution to a broader audience. So, the interpretation of some key passages from the text. The first line was, when I wrote Noli Matengari, I asked myself whether bravery was a common thing in the young woman of our people. I brought back to my recollections and reviewed those I had known since my infancy, but there were only few who seemed to come up to my ideal. The interpretation is Rizal is reflecting on the character of Filipino women, questioning whether bravery and strength are common traits. His observation suggests that while many women possess pleasant manners and modesty, they often lack the assertiveness and independence he envisions as ideal. Next is there was, it is true, an abundance of girls with agreeable manners, beautiful ways, and modest demeanor, but there was in all a admixture of servitude and deference to the words or whims of their so-called spiritual fathers. They seemed face plants sown and reared in darkness, having flowers without perfume and fruits without sap. The interpretation, Rizal criticized the submissive nature of Filipino when attributing it to the influence of the friars and religious authorities. He metaphorically described them as plants grown in darkness, implying that their potential is stifled, leading to a lack of genuine personal intellectual growth. Next is, however, when the news of what happened at the Malolos reached as I saw my error and great was my rejoicing. The interpretation, Rizal refers to the historic event where young women in Malolos petitioned for a night school to learn Spanish. This action challenged the traditional submissive roles assigned to women and this demonstrated their courage and desire for education and self-improvement, which greatly encouraged Rizal. Next is, no longer does the Filipina stand with her head bowed, nor does she spend her time on her knees, because she is quickened by hope in the future. No longer will the mother contribute to keeping her daughter in darkness and bring her up in the contempt and moral annihilation. The interpretation, Rizal envisions a future where Filipino women are empowered and enlightened. He sees the action of the woman of Malolos as a pivotal moment that will inspire other women to rise above their traditional roles, submission, and ignorance, fostering a new generation of strong and educated individuals. Next is, you also know that prudence does not consist in blindly obeying any whim of the little tin god, but in obeying only that which is reasonable and just, because blind obedience is itself the cause and origin of those whims. Those guilty of it are really to be blamed. The interpretation, Rizal, it advocates for critical thinking and reason over blind obedience. He criticized the practice of following religious or authoritative figures without questions, urging individuals to use their judgment to distinguish between just and unjust commands. Next is simplicity. Simpleness does not consist in objectiveness, nor is the successor of Christ to be recognized by the fact that he gave his hand to be kissed. Christ did not give the kiss of peace to the Pharisees and never gave his hand to be kissed. Interpretation, Rizal, it emphasized the true Christian values over outward displays of piety. He points out that genuine sinlessness involves living a life of integrity and justice rather than engaging in superficial religious rituals or showing subservience to religious leaders. Next is, let us be reasonable and open our eyes, especially you women, because you are the first to influence the consciousness of a man. The interpretation, Rizal, highlights the crucial role of a woman in shaping the future generation. He calls on women to embrace reason and enlightenment as they are the primary educators and influencers of their children's values and belief. So next is, the duties that woman has to perform in order to deliver the people from suffering are no little importance, but be they as they may, they will not be beyond the strength and stamina of the Filipino people. The interpretation, Rizal acknowledges the significant responsibilities women bear bear in the struggle for freedom and progress. He expressed the confidence in the strength and the capability of Filipino women to rise to these challenges and contribute meaningfully to societal transformation. Next is we know that you lack instructive books. We know that nothing is added to your intellect day by day, save that which is intended to dim its natural brightness. All this we know, hence are desired to bring you the light that illuminates your equals here in Europe. The interpretation, Rizal notes that the lack of educational resources available to Filipino women which stifles their intellectual growth. He contrasts this with the enlightenment experienced by women in Europe, suggesting a need to provide similar opportunities for education and intellectual development in the Philippines. Next is, it is not virtuous to refuse to worship one's equal, to cultivate one's intellect, and to make use of reason in all things. Interpretation, Rizal encourages the cultivation of intellect and the use of reason as vital aspects of personal and societal growth. He rejects that notion. It is the presumptuous to think for oneself and asserts that true wisdom comes from dependent, though in critical reasoning. So, this interpretation reveals Rizal's profound advocacy for the empowerment of women through education, critical thinking, and active participation in societal reform. His reflections emphasize the pivotal role women play in the broader struggle for national independence and progress.